Hello and welcome to another episode of the Abundantly Successful Show, the show for conscious entrepreneurs that have the deep desire to turn their passion to a successful and thriving business, all while making a huge impact in the world. I'm your host, Kay Sanders, also known as the creator of possibilities. And our interview today, our topic today is actually really amazing. It's the secrets to manifesting your mission. So if you have, been struggling with, figuring out your mission or what direction you want to go into, hopefully with this interview today, you'll get some clarity around how you can really manifest your mission for yourself to create more success in your life and in your business. And our guest expert today is Kelly Sparta. She is a transformational shaman, also known as the Spirit Doctor. So she's going to tell us all about how we can really manifest our own mission. Without further ado, let me introduce you to Kelly. Hello, Kelly. Thanks for being here. Great to have you.
Hi, Kay. It's great to be here.
And I'm definitely looking forward to picking your brain. But before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and my most favorite question, why you do what you do.
Well, that's great. It's one of those things that's really funny because when people ask me, what is it that you do and who are you and things like that, there's always this moment of, well, it's not what I do so much as who I am. Right? I have been doing this work for as long as I can remember. My mother raised me in the New Age movement. She said I was talking to ghosts in my crib. I've been doing self-hypnosis since the age of 10, reading tarot cards since I was 12. She brought Est home, which was a precursor of Landmark Forum. She brought that home when I was 6 years old. So I've been doing this stuff my whole life. And in fact, I was thinking about going to one of my high school reunions a few years ago, and I was looking at my old yearbooks, and there are signatures in my high school yearbook that read like my client testimonials today. So it's less about what I do and more about who I am. So what I do is I help strong women and nice guys claim their space, set great boundaries, own their power, and internalize their sense of value so that they never have to ask for validation again. If they stay with the program long enough, then ultimately I'm also training transformational shamans, because when people come into the program, the first 2 years of the program that you go through are literally 20 years of personal growth work shoved into a 2-year optimized process. And once they do that, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. My whole life has changed dramatically. I want to do this for other people. And so if they decide to keep going, then that's what they can do. But the work is super, super fulfilling, because you take people who work their hearts out. They are just really heartful people. They're empathic, so they feel what other people feel, and they're so impacted by other people's emotions. And all they really want is to be happy and to spread happiness in the world, and they are challenged in that. And so really what the work does is it shows you how to be happy and how to share your happiness. And so, that's ultimately the end goal. And it's just a fabulous thing to watch and be part of.
And I love it. I mean, that's the whole reason why I created the show, is because I know there are so many people out there that want to make that difference, but they simply don't really know how. And, they have all these mindset struggles, and, they're really limited in the impact that they can make. And that's really why I created the show, is to bring these amazing experts like yourself onto the show to share valuable content that the audience can really walk away with some nuggets that they can say, wow, I actually learned something. So I guess, let's dive into the content. I mean, why do you think it's so important to really find our mission? Like, why is it so important for us, ourselves, and also the path that we're supposed to be on?
Well, finding your mission is, so there's this funny thing. People go looking outside of themselves for their mission. And the fact is that your mission isn't about what you do. Just like I was saying earlier, it's not about what you do. It's about who you are. Your mission comes from you. It comes from your beingness, not from your doingness, right? And so the thing that I find when I talk to people about where do I find my mission and how do I get into it, and how do I know what my purpose in life is? And it's like, well, you know what? Stop looking outside of yourself. Stop testing and testing and testing and testing and waiting for a sign, right? They're all waiting for a sign from the universe. The fact is that if you really want to know what your mission is, what you need to do is sit down and just write out your life story. and the things that were important to you, and then go interview everybody that you know and say, what is it that you love about me? What is it that you remember about me? What is it about me that you think is special compared to others? And, look through all of that, because if I waited for my mission to come to me in the form of, oh, well, you do this in the world, there's nobody who's going to say, oh, you have to train transformational shamans, because there's no training for there, at least not one that I've ever found when I was coming up that trained transformational shamans, right? And the work I do in the world, when I was looking at it for myself, I literally went back and I said, well, what is it that I do? What is it? Who am I? And what it came down to is I carry the energy of change. That's what I do. I grew up military. We moved all the time. Everything was constantly in flux. When I come into people's lives, they're in a position of transformation, and I facilitate that process for them, or they come in needing transformation, and I say, just like sometimes even randomly to the stranger on the street, I'll make some random comment, and they go, oh, and their lives go, everything breaks open, and I carry the energy of change. If you go looking for that as a job, you're not going to find that. Mm-hmm. So what I had to do was look at, who am I? And then what do I do with that? Right. And the transformational shaman piece just came out of the work that I was doing to try and fix my own life and try to make myself happy and to try and make things different in my life. And then once you know that, then it's how do I share that? Right? Mm-hmm. So, everybody thinks, oh, well, you have to know where you're going so that you can get there. And the fact is that the journey informs where you're going. The journey is the whole point of where you're going. That's the other thing, is in our culture, we're so goal oriented that we forget that the journey is actually the point. Mm-hmm.
I also think it's also like the vehicle of how you bring that change can also change. I mean, I know for me, like I started out in like holistic life coaching, then I did some sales coaching, and I did, then in business, then mindset, and now the spiritual side. But like it all boiled down to like, I want to create more possibilities for success, more happy life in people. So my purpose was really like, bringing that possibilities to people, but the vehicle of how I delivered it, like it changed and evolved over time. And I think so many people, they're really focused on, like you said, like figuring out how am I supposed to do that? But I think the how shows up as you set foot on your path, and then heal yourself and learn all these other things and have your breakthroughs, your awakenings. And I think it just evolves. I mean, I think that's like also what you just mentioned, right?
Yeah, it's exactly what I was talking about. I sold real estate for 7 years. I was a real estate trainer for 10 years.
Oh boy.
But it's all about transformation. It's all about change. It was, I was really good at it because it was facilitating massive change in people's lives. And it's like, well, yep, that's a path that I can take to do that. So it doesn't matter how you get there, as long as you're engaging the journey along the way and learning as you go.
Mm. Now, what do you think would be the biggest, self-sabotaging behaviors or even beliefs that, often stops people from actually moving forward on their path and finding, what's their true mission?
Yeah, well, I talked a minute ago about waiting for a sign from the universe. That's one of the best ways to hamstring yourself and to get yourself stuck is like, the universe must send me a sign. Well, you know what? You are the sign. Look at your life. You are the sign. Everything about your life has always been the sign. In addition, what I also see is people asking for permission over and over again and then never allowing themselves to have it. I just had a conversation yesterday with a client who she looked at me. She's like, I want to pursue my passion in life. And I said, great, go do it. And she said, well, do you think I need to consult the Akashic records? And I was like, no. She said, how about numerology? I'm like, no, just do it. Stop asking for permission and just go do it. I will print you a permission slip if you need it, but let's just get you to take permission. And then the last thing I would say is that people constantly go looking for what it is that they can't have and why they can't do something rather than how they can. And so, you know, it's like we constantly are like, oh, well, but this will be a problem, and but that'll be a problem, and but that'll be a problem. And it was such a gift to me when I was first taking my real estate training back when I was 23 years old. And one of the I came in late to a class one day, and everyone was in meltdown and going, oh my God, I can't do this. I don't know what I'm going to do. This is too hard. Da, 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 da. And I walked up to him at the break and I went, because, you know, I've been in workshops my whole life and everybody generally trends in the same way. And I'm like, well, I'm not there. I'm behind the curve, and, you know, I haven't hit this point, and I should be where everybody else is, and I don't feel like I can't do it. And he said, yeah, he said, you're never going to hit that point. And I said, why? And he said, because you don't see obstacles. He said, you register the obstacle only long enough to figure out how you're going to go around it, under it, over it, through it, whatever. He said, but you don't like, really, the obstacle doesn't really exist to you. He said, so you're not going to hit that point. And I was like, oh, and that was such a gift to me, because I didn't recognize that other people didn't feel that way. I didn't recognize that other people didn't know that the obstacle was imaginary. Mm-hmm. You know, the obstacle is always imaginary. You can either invest in the obstacle or you can invest in the goal, but whichever one you invest in, that's where you're going to end up. And so if you invest in the obstacle and you're going right up against it and you're like, look, oh my God, the closer your head gets to it, the bigger that obstacle gets, right? It's like, oh, right? And then, you know, you back up long enough, you're going to be like, oh, I'll just walk over that way. It'll be fine. Mm-hmm. Oh, look, I got handholds. I'll climb over it. Oh, look, hey, look, there's dynamite on the ground here. Stunk. Boom, right? You know?
I love it.
I don't care. Whatever it is, it's gone. Get it out of there. You know, I don't invest in the obstacle. I invest in the goal and the journey and the moving forward, you know?
And I believe those obstacles, they're like the lessons that you need to learn, because I mean, how are you supposed to learn how to do it, you know, effectively if you haven't failed a couple of times to figure out how to do it the right way? But, you know, I get it. Like, you know, I was like doing a training once, and the teacher was like telling the same thing. Like, you know, like if you're like riding a bike and you see a little rock on the street, and you're like, oh my God, if I hit that rock, I'm gonna, you know, fall down. And then people like, they're standing like, you know, stand right in front of them, like what you just explained, instead of just going around it. I mean, like in business, I mean, there are always going to be obstacles. You're always going to have people that say, I don't want to work with you, or no, I don't have the money, or you're going to do a project and it's going to fail. Like I said, I don't like to use the word failure, because I believe it's like really lessons learned, because if you do something the very first time, you just simply don't know how to do it effectively, right? I mean, every entrepreneur, they have to go through so many different things to learn new things, to figure out how to do it the right way, right? So, I mean, I really like what you said, but now I want to go back to one thing that you mentioned earlier about, you know, permission. One thing, you know, that I had learned early on was, I mean, whose permission do you really need, right? I mean, the only permission you need to become successful is your own, because at the end of the day, when everyone, you know, let's say leaves your life, who is left? You. So it doesn't really matter if anyone gives you permission. So, you know, I just kind of like wanted to point that out, because I think that is so powerful, giving yourself the permission to become successful rather than asking other people, can I do that? Do you allow me to do that? I mean, how many people are stuck with, you know, well, my family doesn't want me to work, you know, all these hours. My family, they're being upset because this and that. So basically you're asking them for permission to work and do what you're passionate about, right?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, there's a balance to be had, obviously. I mean, you don't want to lose your family in pursuit of your goals if one of your goals is to have a family. So, you know, there's benefits to bringing them on board and getting them invested in the process with you. However, you know, what I find most often is not that it's the family that's the problem, because they'll say, oh, well, I don't want to abandon my family. And then I said, well, have you talked to your family about it? And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, well, why don't you go talk to them and see what they say and come back and see me? And then they come back and they go, oh my God, they're so excited. They really want to do it. They want to help. They've asked me how they can help. And I'm like, fabulous. So why don't we do it now? And they go, oh, but blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay. Let's just say fabulous and leave the but behind, and let's just come over here and just make it happen, because it's really not about any of the things that we put in the way. It's really much more about the fear that we're investing in. And it is far safer to have a dream that you can hold on to than it is to actually go out and do it and take the risk that you're going to fail. Mm-hmm. And again, I love your air quotes for your failure piece, because it's so true. It's like you can never fail if you never quit, right? Mm-hmm. I've been doing spiritual work. Now, granted, I told you I did real estate for years, right? When I went in and started doing training for realtors, I was doing personal development training for them. And I was trying to market it as personal development training, because I'd seen countless trainers over the years doing personal development training for me. What I didn't realize is that they were selling me a sales program and then delivering personal development training. And so it took me a while to realize that the sales pitch was not the personal development training. It was going to teach you how to sell better, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I've done the same thing. I've got a coach right now that I'm working with, and she talks about it as slapping the desk, looking for the pen to find the solution. It's like, did I fail at that? No, I just didn't know how to do it right. So I slapped the desk again, and I slapped the desk again. When you're sitting on the ground trying to find the pen on the top of the desk, you just slap the desk, slap the pen, to look for the pen. And I've slapped for the pen, God knows how many times over 20 years, right? Mm-hmm. And you refocus and you refocus, and you get clear and you get clear, and when you find your ultimate clarity, boom, things go. Mm-hmm. But you can't let it get you down. Mm-hmm. That's the single most important skill or trait that people who succeed have, which is resilience. Mm-hmm. It is that ability to come back and do it again and again and again and again and again, and to not mess with it if it's working.
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh look, it's working, let me do something different. No, do it again, it's working, do it again, not different.
Or like switch to complete different strategy, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, and that people do that all the time with the law of manifestation, law of attraction. They do that. They will put out a desire, and they'll manifest it, and it will show up, and it will scare them how powerful they are, and they will never manifest anything ever again. Right?
Yeah. So it sounds like that just the fear alone of fear of everything, like success and everything, and actually manifesting things easily and effortlessly, sounds like that's like the biggest stumbling blocks a lot of entrepreneurs have.
It is one of the biggest stumbling blocks. It's there's this fear that people have that they can't have what they want, or worse, that they can. And then what does that mean for who they are, right? Because when you have a belief structure that says that this is who I am, and then something happens and it says, oh no, this isn't who you are, this is who you are. The difference between here and here is they don't know how to be this person when they're looking at this. Mm-hmm. And so they think, well, I don't know how to be that person, so I can't be there. And they forget that the journey is what teaches you how to be that person. It's what prepares you to be that person. Wayne Dyer didn't become Wayne Dyer overnight. No. Wayne Dyer did what the rest of us did. He sat and did small little workshops, probably in his house, and worked his way up until he was speaking on national television and doing his thing, right? And that's just who he was. But he became that person by doing it, not because he was already that person. We all think, well, I have to be the person I want to become. And it's like, well, if you were being the person you want to become, you wouldn't be becoming anything. And, so you would already be there. So you have to acknowledge that the journey is going to get you there. The journey is going to make you the person that you're trying to be. Mm-hmm. And, investing in the idea that you're not good enough isn't helpful. It's, you learn as you go. Oh, I don't know how to do that. Okay, well, go learn. Go figure it out. Yeah. Go ask somebody, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, that's just part of being an entrepreneur. You have to learn so many different things. But, one thing that I also had to learn early on, like what you just kind of said, it's like you need to become the person that allows success, that, allows, money to come to you, clients to come to you, and all of those different things. Because if you don't have what you want yet, it's because you haven't become that person yet that allows all these things. And like, one of my coaches actually told me, is like, it really doesn't matter like what you do to become successful. It's who you need to become that really determines the amount of success you have, the amount of fame, the amount of money, the amount of, whatever it is that you want. It's really a becoming part. And that's, like you mentioned, that's part of the journey. And, because there's so many entrepreneurs, like we all have that mindset, the mindset traps, like, oh, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. Oh my God, what if I fail? I've been there. I had like so many mindset challenges initially. It was because I focused more on, getting out there, doing these things, but internally I was just not ready to actually receive what could have come to me from the things that I was doing. And, at first I thought he was totally bananas and he doesn't know what he's talking about, until it really it was like after that call, I sat down and I thought about like, what? He's right. And that's really when I, took on the journey of, mindset stuff. And it's really, it's what you said. You have to become that person. And then everything else kind of like falls in place. But you have to start somewhere and become. Take step foot on a journey of becoming, I guess what I want to say. Yeah. So what would you say, like, what are some of the first steps someone can do to really move forward, like powerfully on their mission? Like if they already know what their mission is.
Well, so the very first thing is just take some action. Even if the action is just asking for help, right? In today's world, it's so much easier than it was when I started 20 years ago, because we have the great God Google to answer our questions. You don't have to like make your way down to the SBA and talk to the person in the SCORE office and hope that they have a clue about how to tell you what you need to find out, or, try and talk somebody into mentoring you or whatever. You can just do a search online and be like, how do I do a business plan? How do I do some marketing? How do I do Facebook? How do I do this? Whatever. And Google goes, oh, here's 50 answers. And you're like, woohoo. And now it's just a matter of, how do I read 50 answers, right? So it's less about finding the information, more about distilling the information today than it was when I got started. So it's much easier to come by this information now. But sometimes you just don't even know what to ask, right? Because you're so new, you just don't have a clue. And then you go to some networking events and you go find somebody who does what you want to do, and you go, help, please, help. Just a little plan. Can you point me in the right direction, please? I could use your help. Because somewhere along the way, I promise you, they did the same thing to somebody else, and somebody else gave them a hand up, and they're going to help you too. And, this is their chance to pay it forward. So, don't be afraid to ask. People love to help. And the next thing is, don't accept no for an answer. Okay, or for an ultimate answer. Individual people will say no to you over your time. That's okay. That's their right. They're competent humans living their own lives, and they either want to do it or they don't. But the ultimate answer isn't theirs to give. If you want something, a no from one person is not a no from everyone. You just have to go ask somebody else. Yeah. I call myself a yes girl. I'm like, I want a yes. I'm going to find a yes. Let me find the yes. Are you my yes? How about you? How about you? And I meet a ton of people, and I go looking for my yes. And when you go looking for your yes, you will find it. If you go out in fear of your no, you will find nothing, because you will never ask. Mm-hmm. So you have to learn how to ask. And then the last thing is share your passion with the people around you, because that passion is the important thing, because that's what inspires people into action. You will either inspire them into their own action in their own lives, or you will inspire them to help you. And either way, you've given good into the world, and the universe will give it back to you as it comes. And you made a great comment there, Kay, about the being willing to receive. Because so many times I see people who say, oh, they will put a need on the table in front of me, and I will say, well, here, let me do this for you. And they go, oh, I couldn't ask you to do that. And I'm like, you didn't ask me to do anything. I offered, and you're either going to take it or you're not. I'm a busy person, so yes or no, choose. right? There are people, you'd be stunned, where I go out to a networking event or whatever, and I offer somebody something. And over the years, I have learned as a networker that I do not follow up with anyone. I say, here's my card. If you want it, come and get it. Just email me and ask me for it, and I will happily send it to you, whatever it is that I've offered. And 99 times out of 100, I never hear from them again, when I could have opened the door for them. I could have given them the contact they needed. I could have offered them the resource they needed. I offered it freely, and I would happily have given it. But 99 times out of 100, they don't actually want it. Or they don't follow up to get it because they didn't write it down. They forgot that I offered, they whatever, because they're not prepared to receive.
And I think that's a lot of people have that problem. I know for myself, that was one of the biggest problems as well for me, is like, I ask and I ask and I ask, but deep down, I was not ready to receive. Because I think it also goes back to, that's one of the things that I discovered was like the support, like, especially, us entrepreneurs, we are in our business, by our, like, for ourselves, right? So we think that we have to do everything on our own. I mean, like that, I actually just did a video, like about this a couple of weeks ago, is about, the power of collaboration. That's like the best example is like, when you collaborate, I mean, we are collaborating right now by doing this video, by bringing content value to the audience. And so many people, they're really resisting just collaborating. They're like, well, that's the competition, but it's really not, right? Because I mean, you're doing something completely different than I do. And even if we're doing something similar, still it's something different. But, it goes back to receiving the support. I believe that really is very difficult, like, especially like when it comes to clients. I mean, they're supporting you by giving you the money, right? By signing up for you. And as, independent women, independent people, we hate taking support, right? We have a really hard time with that. And that's one of the things that I really had to learn, like, well, my clients technically support me. I had to be okay with receiving that support in order to survive in my business. And I think so many people have a hard time with that as well. Or what do you think?
Well, there's actually another piece to that as well, which I see happen a lot, which is, and this is especially true for women business owners, but it's true for anybody who's fairly new to business. There is a factor when you start that part of it is you're asking your clients for validation. You're saying, oh, am I good at what I do? Oh, tell me that you got something out of it. You got an aha, you were happy, you were satisfied with your service, whatever it is. And what we don't realize is that that's actually a form of compensation. The validation is a form of compensation. And so when you're in a stage where you're asking for validation from your clients, you're going to get paid a lot less than when you know what you do is valuable, then you're going to get paid a lot more. And so when I see people under earning, the first thing I look for is, are they asking for validation as part of their compensation? Because if that's true, then you do two things. One is you're coming off as, tell me I'm awesome, right? And, tell me you love me, and am I okay? Did I do okay? I want to make sure you're okay, and you're over solicitous. And the second thing you're doing is you're over delivering. And so oftentimes what will happen during a sales pitch, during an initial conversation, you'll deliver so much that they no longer need to hire you. And so that's the second thing that happens with people who are new in business, and especially women. And it's that validation piece. So you have to really work the validation piece inside of you and make sure that you feel solid in yourself so that you don't do that and lose the business because of it.
Mm-hmm. And, I kind of want to go back to, like two things that you mentioned earlier, because I think they're very, very, important to highlight is like, well, one, asking for help. I mean, I see so many people, they really refuse to ask for help, or they think they can't ask help. They have to figure the stuff out themselves. Going back to, also with the collaboration, I mean, it is so important, why can't we just ask like, hey, do you want to collaborate? Hey, do you want to support one another? What's so bad about that? But because I think, if we look at it from a point of view of, well, if I collaborate with Kelly right now, I'm going to be able to bring a much, much greater impact to the world than if it's just, lonely me, lonesome me. So, I mean, how can we really overcome this whole fear of, well, I can't ask for help?
Well, and part of this, at least with my people that I work with the strong woman, nice guy dynamic, it's like we're keeping a mental bank account of help. And so when we help somebody else, we consider it a 50-cent deposit into the bank account. And when we ask for help from someone else, it's a $50,000 withdrawal, right? It's like we value other people's help of us at like infinite numbers higher than we do at the level that we're doing ourselves when we help other people. So that's part of the issue, is that we feel like we haven't built up our bank accounts high enough with the people on the other side. And we don't recognize that giving somebody the opportunity to help us is actually a gift to them. Because, and think about this for a minute, think about the last time you tried to help somebody who was unwilling to receive your help, and how frustrating it was for you that you wanted to help them and that they wouldn't let you, and how unreceived you felt in your giving. And that's what we're doing to other people when we will not ask for help, because they see us struggling and they see us not doing well, and they want to help. And if you're either they've offered and you've said no, or they look at you and they see you and they see that you're totally not open to receiving help, and that you're going to take it personally and take it that they've said you're a failure or whatever if they offer. And, that you're trying to be perfect, right? It's that whole need to look like you got it all together. I'm perfect. I've got this down. I'm good. No problem. No, I'm good, right? Yeah. And so there's that way in which we try to hold this image of perfection, and it prevents us from getting the support that we could get otherwise if we would allow people to see us. And you can't go walking around going, oh, I'm a nightmare and I don't know what I'm doing, because nobody wants to hear that either.
Nope. I think a good mix of both, sharing your struggles, but also, saying, I got my stuff together.
Right. But yeah, just saying, I've done X, Y, and Z, and I'm having challenges with A, B, and C. And so that you say, look, I've helped myself and I'm willing to do the work, but I just need some direction. Can you help me? Right? And when you ask for direction, here's another key thing. If you're going to ask people for help, here's some support in how to do that. First, offer help. That's rule number one, is you see somebody that you want to ask for support from, see where you can find a way to help them, right? And then ask for help in a way that is easy for them to say yes to, but leaves room opening for them to say to offer a higher yes. So don't ask the person with the 50,000 person podcast following to, promote you, because they're not going to do that. They've worked years and years and years trying to get their 50,000 people, and they're not going to promote you just because you asked. But if you say, hey, how can I help you? What's going on with you right now? Do you need anything? And they go, well, I could use a speaker to talk about this. Don't say, I do that. Yep. They say, well, you know what? I do that, but and I know a bunch of people. What exactly are you looking for? And then they say, well, I need somebody with a list of X and who does Y and blah, blah, blah. And you say, okay, well, let me get on the phone and call some friends. And they say, okay, great. And so you get on the phone and you find them a speaker that meets their criteria. Well, now you've introduced the two of them, and the two of them are going to say, hey, Kelly introduced us, and Kelly is amazing because blah, 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 blah. And now we're going to talk about our thing. And so you'll get a shout out, which is probably the best you can hope for in that scenario, is a shout out, right? And maybe if you're really lucky, they'll put a little link to you in the show notes, right? But something like that. But you'd be stunned how much that can help, right? Yeah. Or maybe they say, yeah, we're not gonna be able to do a shout out for you, but how about I post on social media thanks to you. Mm-hmm. That'd be awesome, right? Mm-hmm. Every little bit helps. And And sometimes they'll go further. Sometimes if you're a real go-getter and you're really trying to help them and you're really trying to learn, I will tell you there's nothing more attractive to a longtime entrepreneur than somebody who is hell-bent to learn what they can learn and is willing to be a sponge and to soak up any information you can give them. That is one of the most attractive things to an entrepreneur, because so many people come up and ask us for our advice and then they don't take it. Mm-hmm. And what a waste of my time to have given you advice that you then don't take. And somebody who's coming in hungry and really wants to learn and really wants to implement and goes out immediately and implements what you give them, you want to help them more. You want to help them more and more and more, because you know that your time and your effort is being well spent.
Exactly. And, that kind of goes also back to, what I always basically preach or talk about, and I practice myself is, you want to build those valuable relationships, because, I've done that myself, like many times where I meet someone and I'm like, hey, you want to be on podcast? Guess what? I know a lot of podcast hosts who always look for amazing people. So guess what? I connect them. Right. That's building a relationship. And I believe in that, wholeheartedly, that goes a lot further, because guess what? Then I already have this bond with this person. So then, the podcast host, likes me even more because I gave them an amazing guest. And then the person that I introduced to the podcast host loves me because I gave them spots on a podcast, gives them more visibility. So I built a relationship with two different people, which then over time can grow into more and more and more and more. And then eventually, hey, we might collaborate if I get, clients from that. So I think it's more important to actually build up a relationship with another expert rather than like, okay, I have a call with you. Oh, you're not a good client for me. I don't want to talk to you ever again. I think, if we build that, lasting relationship, make it a win-win situation, it can go so much further in, helping us. I mean, this topic is about the mission. I mean, if we have this big mission or vision of making a huge impact in the world, you simply can't do it on your own, right? And I mean, if you're building those relationships, I mean, who knows what you and me will do later on down the road? I mean, there's so many opportunities, so many possibilities, but I think you have to really be open to that. And, now one thing, I just kind of want to touch on what you mentioned earlier, what I think is also so important, especially as it relates to the mission, is the passion. I mean, I've seen people, I get interviewed a lot. I talk to a lot of people, and you can tell when someone is really passionate about what they do and when someone is just doing it because they think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like those people who are really passionate about, they have this glow. They're like vibrant. They're like, you can really feel that, they're drawing the people in with their passion. But when you have someone talking like, I really like this and that, and I completely get what you're doing, it's boring. You basically push people away rather than bring them in. Or, I mean, how do you feel about that when it comes to passion and your mission? And how does it all really, go together?
Yeah, it's fascinating that you mentioned that, because it's so true. It's so true. And when you are living what you're doing, there's such a difference in the way that you are in the world. One of my students recently, she's about 9 months into the program. She's actually doing 2 years at once. So she's hardcore, right? She's like bang on. She called me up recently and she said, I've been sending you a lot of referrals. She said a lot more than usual, because I'm not talking about you. People are coming up to me and saying, what are you doing? You're luminous and you're amazing, and your beingness has so shifted in the last year since we've seen you. And what are you doing? We need whatever it is that you're doing. And she's referring people over to me to do that. But it's because her beingness has changed and she's so engaged in the work. And I will tell you, she's probably one of the hardest working students I've ever had. She just engages and engages and engages and engages, and she's super passionate about the work. And it's because of that they are seeing the transition and the transformation in her, and seeing the the passion with which she's engaging her life now, because, you know, all these blocks are falling away, and she's able to, every time a new block falls, she's like, whoa, you know, just everything just opens up at another level and another level and another level. And so people are noticing because she's been so passionately engaged in her process, right? Mm-hmm. It's amazing to watch.
Yeah, I totally.
Yeah. And you know, it's the perfect statement of success when someone looks at you and says, I want what you have. Mm-hmm. I want to be who you are. When somebody says that, you know that you've actually really fully engaged your mission. You've really fully engaged yourself. You're living your life with authenticity and with passion, because unless you're doing those things, no one's ever going to say those things to you.
Exactly. Now, have you ever had anyone that was resisting to really uncovering their mission? I think we might need to, you know, cover that, because I think, you know, a lot of people actually do resist. I know for me, I mean, I got smacked by the universal baseball bat so many times. I still got the bumps because I was resisting. Like, for example, videos. I knew I was supposed to be doing more videos. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do videos. I don't. And now I do videos. But it was like I got smacked so many times until I finally listened. So let's maybe talk about that real quick. What about, you know, people resisting?
Yeah, a friend of mine calls that the universal clue by four. Yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah. So, I hit resistance in people so often that actually the very first thing that they get in every program they do with me is how to overcome your inner resistance to change. It's a 15-page booklet, because it's how to recognize it and how to overcome it and how to move through it, because yes, everybody resists change, because change is scary, right? And change, I just talked to a girlfriend of mine yesterday, and I told her that the cost, because she's still doing real estate, and I was like, look, you know, I know about this other company, and if you went there, you'd make 40 grand more a year, $40,000. And I said, you know, she's like, but I hate change. I said, I hate change. $40,000 worth? And she was just like, oh, so you're paying $40,000 to avoid the discomfort of change. Let me just be clear with you that that's what you're doing. And she was like, oh, don't put it that way. I'm like, but that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do, right? It's so scary that we don't want to do it. And we're so terrified that we're just like, I don't care what it costs me. I can't. But you know what? You can. It's you know, fear is only as strong as we give it power.
Exactly.
It literally is like this big until we go, and then it goes like this.
Yep.
And then it goes like that.
Eventually it's like huge.
Right. And then it's like huge. And then you're like, I can't do anything. Right.
Yep.
Like flailing, right? Yep. And you know, at some point you just got to go pop, and the whole thing, it's just a big bubble and it goes away. You just, when you dig up the energy to just do it, it's all good. There's a video right now on Facebook of a Shetland pony trying to get out of a storage container that it was in for the evening, and the ledge is like this big, right, for it to jump out onto the ground, and it's like, I'm getting ready. And he's like, I'm not sure. And then finally he jumps out and he's like jumping up and down for joy, right? Because he got out of this 4-inch high storage container. And you're just like, yeah, that is a metaphor for life, because that's exactly what happens. We're like, it's 4 inches off the ground. Oh my God. Jump. Yay, I didn't die.
Yeah. And I mean, usually like when you then look back, it's like, hey, it wasn't all that bad.
Right. Yeah. I have a habit of telling my clients, I'm like, look, every time you do something and it works, or it doesn't go horribly wrong, you just go, look, I didn't die.
Yeah.
Look, I didn't die. And if you keep putting it in that perspective, you start laughing at yourself.
Yep. And you're also teaching your ego that, hey, it is safe to step outside of the comfort zone, because I believe when you step outside of the comfort zone, that's when all the magic happens. That's when all the amazing things happen. But you kind of got to push through that bubble of comfort zone in order to get to the other side.
Yeah.
But, Kelly, I mean, I really love, our conversation. I think we could continue talking about this, for hours, but I think, we kept, the people, on long enough. But, if anyone would like to get in touch with you, how can they find out more about you? Where can they find you? How can they learn more about you?
So you'll see my name at the bottom of the screen. It's spelled Kelly Sparta, Kelly with an E. Yes, my mother was phonetically stupid. I can't help it. So kellysparta.com will get you to my website. And, if you're having a hard time figuring out where you're going or what it is that you're trying to do, where you should go next in your personal growth process, anything along those lines, I encourage you to click the button that says sign up for book a session and sign up for a discovery session. The discovery sessions are free. It's an hour where you and I get to sit down and just chat about what's going on in your life and what's the right direction for you. And don't think it's going to be a big sales pitch, because it isn't. You're going to tell me what's going on with you, and I'm going to say, well, this would be the direction I would go, or that would be the direction I would go. And I'm only going to tell you it's the direction of my program if I really, truly feel that that's the case. I have been known to refer people out many, many times. And I can have an entire day filled with discovery sessions, and I may end up with 2 clients out of it because, everybody else was better served by go do this or go talk to that person, or don't worry, you're fine, or whatever. Right. So please don't feel like it's a big sales pitch. It's not. It's a conversation. And I'd love to talk to you.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And I'll put the links, there with the video and also in the show notes, so they can just click on. I mean, now in closing, do you have any last words of advice, any last thoughts you would like to leave us with?
Be positive, do what you love, and demand that you get compensated accordingly.
I love it.
Yeah. Demand's probably the wrong word, but just expect to get compensated accordingly, because demanding is not an energy you want to engage. Yeah. But expect to get compensated accordingly and allow that to be true for you.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And also, Kelly, thank you so much for, taking your time to be here to share all the great content, that we covered. I mean, I think we did cover a lot of great topics. I hope, the audience is really going to walk away with a lot of good nuggets. I mean, there were a couple of things that I even learned, so thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks for having me, Kay. Anytime.
Okay, great. And, also I want to thank you guys, for tuning in, for being here, for sticking with us. I really hope you're getting a lot of value out of these interviews. And, like we talked about earlier, you have a mission, you have a vision, be passionate about what you do. Don't hold back. I mean, I always like to, tell my clients, like people that I talk to, like, go out there, because, that's also the reason why I create the show, is to teach people, amazing people like you, that it is okay to be out there. You have a big mission to fulfill, or, I want you to have this big vision, this big mission for yourself to really go out there and make a difference in the world. So, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to go to abundantly-successful.com to check out the show notes, to look at previous interviews and previous solo episodes that I've released, so you can really, walk away with a lot of great content and lots of golden nuggets, hopefully. So with that said, thank you so much for being here. I'll see you in the next interview, and I hope you have an abundantly and successful day.